everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. And how are you? How are you all doing? I'll just give you one glimpse into how I'm doing. I was just listening to a song by the Mice. It's called Not Proud of the USA. So there's where I am. But instead of dwelling on that, I think I just want to launch into the episode today. This was really good. Today's guest is Maia Friedman. And if you don't know who Maia is, I'm going to read you her bio right now. Originally from Los Angeles, musician Maia Friedman's family moved around to different California locales. And eventually after college, Maia ended up in New York. She formed the band Uni Ika I in 2016, joined Dirty Projectors in 2018, and began the band Coco around 2020. As a solo performer, she's released 2 albums, her first Under the New Light in 2022, and her latest Goodbye Long Winter Shadow just came out on Last Gang Records, and it's great. I had never heard of Maia before. I'd heard of Coco, obviously Dirty Projectors. I just talked to David Longstreth a couple weeks ago. But I heard Maia's new album, and it's great. I wasn't just, look folks, not just blowing smoke up people's butts here when I say something's a delight. But yeah, I've been listening to her album a ton, and she was really cool to talk to. We talk a lot about, let's see here, what do we talk about? Parenting, and how parenting has maybe changed the way she approaches her artistic work. We also talk a lot about her time living in the wilds of California, which is a suburban kid who was scared to go into adjacent forests for fear that a tick might get on me and that I would get Lyme disease. I peppered her with many questions about the wilderness. So I hope you enjoy our talk, and please check out Maia's new album. Okay, before we get into the show, though, I just want to tell you about some stuff coming up. Tune Yards, just talked to them. David Bazan from Pedro the Lion. Daniel Littleton of Ida. That was really cool. We ended up talking about his punk days in Annapolis in the 80s. Who else? Comics folks. Michael DeForge, Kelly Sue DeConnick. Those are coming up. So stay tuned for those. But for now, let's talk to Maia.
Well, I was born in LA and then lived in California. I mean, I moved out of LA when I was 6, but lived in California, like near Yosemite, in Ventura.
Oh, I know
kind
Ventura.
of that zone. Yeah. So
you mean up the 101?
Up the 101, yes. Right on the coast. And so I graduated high school there. I went to school in Ojai, and then graduated high school, and then moved to Vermont to go to college. And then I think I planned on I was like, oh, I'll just move to New York with all of my friends and live here for 2 years. But I moved here in 2010. Mm. So yeah, it's been 15 years.
Was the move done in order to professionalize being a musician, or was it just like that seems like that's the place that's beckoning you?
I think a little bit of both. I don't think at the time, the thought definitely wasn't I'm moving to New York to pursue being a professional musician. It was more all of the people that I collaborate with, my friends that I like to play with, that I like to spend time with, they all moved down here. I think I was dating somebody at the time who moved down here. I think it was more just life. Yeah, just is how it unfolded.
It's weird. I don't think I've ever not moved to a place for a purpose. As you were talking, I was thinking, I was like, well, I went to Pittsburgh for college. I went to Philly for grad school. And then I went to New York to pursue comedy. And that's where I thought I was going to stay. And then it was LA because that's where all the work is, really. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever just gone to a place just like, well, that's where some people are. I guess I'm I'm dating a person. I'm curious if that is. I'm curious, I guess, about the thought process behind that. Does that make sense as a question?
Mm-hmm. The thought process moving to New York.
Moving is so onerous. Like, it just feels like I'm like, if I wasn't going to a place for a specific, I mean, now like my wife and I are like, what's our red line for leaving the United States? So like the next move could possibly be like, well, I don't know, whatever it is. I guess rounding up people that, I mean, they're doing that already. But I guess I don't know what I guess I don't know what the like full I guess like real Holocaust type shit is like. Maybe like if we have a little crystal knocked here, then a little American crystal knocked, then.
I remember. I don't know. This must have been something that I saw on Instagram or something. I don't remember, but it was talking about like what needs to happen. How close does something like that need to get to you in order for you to start taking it seriously? And it was like, is it like your neighbor gets taken away? Is it your, like, a friend of a friend of a friend? Is it your cousin, your brother, your parents? Like, like how close does it have to get for it to really resonate? And I don't know the answer because, there's the Columbia professor who was detained, and I live in Brooklyn. That happened in Manhattan. Is that close enough? When do my alarms and bells and whistles start going off? I don't know the answer.
Yeah. I mean, I want to get back to the moving question, but
yeah,
this is a difficult. I'm a scientific person, so I don't need like my neighbor to be hauled away by masked Gestapo figures. I know like it's going on, but like I guess the question with like moving, like leaving the country, being an expatriate, is more about like my own personal safety. It was the same thing with like COVID, where I'm like, oh, I read the scientific articles. I read the NIH papers. I know how bad COVID is. I don't need to get long COVID to learn a lesson. In fact, many of the people in my life who have got long COVID did not learn any lessons anyway. But like, I don't need to have a stroke or a heart attack or something like that to know that I should probably mask up in public places and things like that. And it's the same kind of thing where I'm like, I don't know if I need an object lesson, or I don't need proximity necessarily as much as I need to know that my own, like, I guess if they start coming after like entertainment figures, and I'm low down on that chain, but like, I think that's maybe when my wife and I might be like, this is now. Yeah. Like, it's bad. It's been bad. But does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
Where would you go?
Ireland, we thought.
Ireland?
Yeah. English speaking, progressive.
Uh-huh.
But I guess the thought about any kind of moving, that's why I'm like, I mean, I got stuck on this because I spent too much time reading the news this morning, and I'm utterly nauseated. But
yeah,
the idea behind just moving, like, do you think you are someone who follows their whims, who's like, I can pick up easily and just like, oh yeah, this seems like a good idea, I'll just follow this? Or are you someone who like me, obviously, who neurotically thinks about things and then, it plagues them forever?
I think that I've always been a person who I think feels fairly free to follow my whims, I guess, as you said. Things have changed because I have a daughter now. So it's a little bit different. I've moved so much in my life. I mean, when we play the how many places have you lived game, the number of places it's a lot. It's a lot of places. And I think I've tried to leave New York City many times. I've tried, and my attempts have been thwarted with I mean, it was like, if you are into thinking about universe working, for you or against you, it's as if the universe was saying that I wasn't supposed to leave. And now that I have a kid, I definitely am not, I don't feel as free to just, follow all my whims and gallivant around the world.
Was that a difficult transition to make from just, being able to kind of do what you want to, like, or was it natural, like, oh, well, now I have a human being that it's my responsibility to rear, and so it feels natural to kind of just start focusing on them?
I think my biggest fear around becoming a parent had to do with the transition from being a very independent, autonomous person to being someone who had to be more not even responsible, that's not the right word, but more conscious of the decisions that I'm making. Accountable, yes. And losing some of that freedom and autonomy. I think especially as a musician, I really love touring. I love playing shows. I really love traveling. And I can't just say yes to every opportunity anymore. I have to pick and choose a little more carefully. And so my daughter's a year and a half now. I think it took me a solid 9 months after she was born to fully grieve the me that I had to let go of. And I've heard a lot of other parents, particularly mothers, especially mothers who are creative or have a really rich creative life, that there is a very serious period of mourning, and I had to basically say goodbye to my former self, and then I'm still in the process of discovering who I am now as I'm going forward. And I'm about to leave for tour in a couple days. My daughter's coming with me. I'm still doing it, but I'm doing it in a very different way.
Outside of autonomy, what are other things that you've lost? And maybe lost not the right word, because maybe it's not stuff that you wanted to hang on to anyway. But what was this? I guess it's a paradigm shift, right? It is, you are totally transforming. And I like the way that you phrase it with grieving or mourning, because that really is. Anytime you change, I started therapy in 2013, and I quickly realized that part of the process and of actually doing the work, there was this inherent fear in it of, oh, I'm going to be a different person on the other side of this. And the flip side of that fear was a need to mourn the person I was, which was not, it's not like I was it's not like it's not like I got hit in the head in a cartoon and I'm a different person. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you wake up a little. I think it's, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
So I guess what was the paradigm shift specifically, outside of just autonomy?
Well, oh boy, how much time do we have here? I'm someone, I love to be alone. I'm an only child, and I was born in LA, but then I lived for a long time near Yosemite, and a very formative part of my life was in the wilderness, where it was me and my dogs. I had 2 dogs, and my mom, and I spent a lot of time alone, and I think that that's just continued with me my whole life. I love to be alone. If I don't get enough time alone, I become a monster.
Yeah, I get it.
And I just don't have that anymore. Like that is, it's completely changed. You know, and I have to say this I need to at least name that I'm completely obsessed with my daughter. She's the coolest. I love her so much. You know, all of that stuff. Like, I just have to put that out there.
Right.
And there's this other side, which is, and I'm still struggling with it. I was actually just saying to my husband, I was like, I've met, you know, they're like, I don't know. It's like you see these moms on Instagram or moms that I meet where they're like, I'm in full-time care of my child until they're 3 years old, and I wouldn't want anyone else to be with them. I'm with them all day, every day. And I'm just like, I don't know. That's really hard. Oh my God, I'm going to sound... The pressure that I feel to like be that ideal mom who's like psyched about being mom only all the time. It's just, that's not who I am as an artist, I think.
Sure. I bet they're lying too. I bet it's just a false facade that they're putting up for the like 89% of
yes,
the internet.
I mean, of course that's what the internet is. But so I think, yeah, my time alone, my time to be creative has really shifted. I think so my record that's coming out in May, I finished that record like 2 weeks before my daughter was born. And since she was born, this will be the third record that's come out that I've been involved in. So the first record was my band Coco. We had our second record come out. There's a Dirty Projectors record that just came out, and then my record. So there's a lot that's going out into the world, but it was all written, created, all the art, everything was made before having my daughter. And so I have not gone back into that the kind of creative space that I have to go into when I'm writing yet. So I don't know about that yet.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Have you written a song in the since at all?
No.
Is it just because you haven't had the time, or have you been afraid to?
No, I think I haven't had the time. And, you know, if I'm being nice to myself, I would remind myself, well, hold on, Maia, this is the pattern. You put stuff out, and then you can't start writing again until the thing that you made has been released. And then there's time to kind of like recuperate and regenerate, and then new things come forth. And it's been, there have been 3 things like this. My record is the final thing that's coming out. So yes, so I haven't written a song yet. So I think that's yet to be discovered, how that's changed.
Interesting.
But I've been creative in many other ways. And yeah, I like the amount of time that like you said, your wife was at the salon getting her hair done. And, you know, I was like, oh my God, that sounds so amazing. Like, I don't even know the amount of I think I used to be someone who took really good care of herself, eating so well, exercising, not like too much, but like just a good, healthy amount. I would get a massage every once in a while, just very good to myself. And that has just really not able to maintain that. I think that in the past, I would have, you know, if there was like a 1.5 month long tour, I would have been super down to jump into that and really go hard with booking stuff around my record. And that's really changed. And I have feelings about that. I think that's complicated. Yeah.
I mean, you said you've done other creative things.
I mean, there's more.
Do you know, or have you thought about how that process has changed? Or has it? Of being creative, period.
Yeah. Well, I used to paint a lot on my own, alone. It was like a very meditative thing that I would do. Haven't done that, but I've done a lot of drawing with my daughter. Like that's when I do it, is I'm drawing with my daughter, and I'm not creating the art that I want to make necessarily, but I feel the whatever chemicals are being released when I'm doing that. I mean, it's very soothing for me. And then working on my album artwork, photo layouts, music videos, writing, all of that stuff around the more visual side of the record. I mean, that's been the last 6 months, has been working on all of that stuff. Yeah. And then performing with Dirty Projectors. We've had a few performances.
It doesn't feel different though, or it does?
The performances?
Any of it, just the act itself. Like, I'm curious about, like, trying to think of anything that I guess to me there is a certain sense, and tell me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I'm child free, so this could be completely off base, but like, I think that the ability to indulge is gone, right?
Oh, yes.
I would think that in the creative act, this is just a dumb. This is not even the same thing. Obviously, pets are not the same thing as a child. So just we're clear, I'm not. But they have needs. And so if I sat down the other day to try to write, I'm working on a script, and the dog needs to go out. And I go, fine, okay, I'll take you out and I'll come back in. I come back in, I go back to start writing. The cat throws up. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. So then I have to go clean up cat vomit, make sure the cat's okay. It's just a hairball, and there's not something more serious. But like that kind of stuff, I can no longer, and this is just pets. Obviously, a child is much more, it's much more involved in rearing a child. Just dealing with their needs, I can no longer just indulge myself and just like sit in and write for 5-6 hours or something like that. It is just, or whatever other responsibilities I have, because, there's millions of other things that have to be done. It's no longer a thing I'm imagining like a sphere surrounding myself and me just kind of like, a dumb metaphor, but you ever go into one of those James Turrell artworks where he does these light things, and you kind of like, you can sit in a chamber or a thing and the light changes. It's like that to me was the creative process when I had no other responsibilities.
Same. Yeah, definitely.
And it changes. It changes the flavor. It changes like what you're going to do.
Yes.
Because it's no longer like, oh, well, I can just follow. Again, this goes back to whims, and I actually want to trace that back further, but like, you can't just follow your whims. You got to actually say like, well, what is meaningful now? And now there's a little more. Well, I'll ask you: is there more intention?
More intention. I mean, what you said about indulging. I mean, that is very real. Yeah, no, that's gone. That's completely gone. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Because everything becomes about efficiency. Mm-hmm. Like really, really focusing on efficiency. Like, because, how can there's so many things to get done. How can I get all of these things done as efficiently as possible? Oh, gosh, yeah, someone was... Oh, I can't remember. I had a conversation with someone where who also has a kid. So I'm part of this WhatsApp group of other mom touring musicians. And someone said something about, I think they may have left their daughter with grandma for the weekend, and they went and did this festival by themselves, and they got to be alone in a hotel room for the first time. alone for the whole night, you know, and everyone was just like, oh, like heaven. That sounds amazing. But yes, yeah, I think something about indulgence came up, and intention. I mean, you know, in the back of my mind, Petra is always there. You know, we're doing this, and I'm thinking, you know, she's like, I'm aware she's at daycare right now. I'm thinking about her. I wonder how she's doing. She just woke up from her nap 30 minutes ago, and I'm not thinking about myself anymore. Intention. I don't even know. I don't even know if, like, I've had time to think about it. You know, I don't have time to think about stuff. Oh my God, maybe that's what it was. It was just sitting and staring out the window. Yes, I think that's what this conversation was. It was about just sitting and staring out the window, not doing anything. That is what feels indulgent.
Interesting.
Not doing anything.
And to me, that's the core of creation. To sit and, like, so the first scene of this script I'm writing, I'm trying to envision it, and I just sit, I lie down on the couch, I close my eyes, and I just picture what it looks like so that I can write it.
Yeah.
And I think I used to have those moments much more often. Again, with the caveat, cats and dogs, not the same as humans.
Yeah.
Just to keep reiterating that.
Right.
But I want to go back because I'm curious about the indulgences, whims, not indulgences in terms of like the things that the Catholic Church sold in the 1600s. But I just mean that kind of mentality, that freedom, and feeling that freedom is, well, I think so. Obviously something that gets crafted in childhood, in your brain, in one's brain. Your parents, do they meet in Los Angeles? Your dad's a film editor, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. They met in LA. Yeah.
Are they from here?
They're both from the East Coast. My dad was born in Flushing, Queens, grew up in Queens, went to what was called Harper College. Now it's in Binghamton. Might be Binghamton College now. Yeah, very East Coast. My mom grew up in Virginia.
Oh, interesting.
And both of them moved to LA in the 70s. And there was some art opening, and my dad was being set up on a date with another woman, not my mom. And so that my dad was at this art opening. His friend was setting him up with this woman, and he saw my mom, who was there because she worked for the museum. I think it was at the Craft and Folk Art Museum in LA. She worked for the museum for the founders, and his friend who he was there with also knew, you know, he was like, oh, Willow? Oh, my mom's name is Willow. Oh, I'll introduce you. And so, yeah, that's how they met in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
What brought them to LA? He wanted to be a film editor? Like that was his... He
was working for a production company called... Oh, I'm not going to remember. I remember his production company, which was called Euphoria Productions. He was working for another production company. I can't remember the name, but he was working out of New York, and they were like, we need someone in LA. Will you move to LA? And so he moved to work for this man who had this company in LA. And then my mom was, I don't know what brought her there. She was like, dropped out of high school, rode around on a motorcycle. She was very free floating.
She was very Californian. That feels like California in the 70s.
Exactly. And then she ended up going to UCLA. And then she went to Pacifica Graduate Institute. My mom's a therapist. She went to Pacifica Graduate Institute, which is it's like Carpinteria, Montecito zone. Yeah. And so, I don't know, maybe she was there going to UCLA at the time. Yeah, she was in a it was called the World Arts and Cultures program at UCLA. It was like a department. I don't know if they still have that department, but, and then got this job at the Craft and Folk Art Museum, which was in, right near the tar pits.
Uh-huh. So, okay, but all you had to do was say she dropped out of college and rode a motorcycle. I'm like, quintessential 1970s California. Like, that's the kind of person who eventually finds themselves in California.
Yeah.
If they're lucky, they figure out their stuff. If they're not, they end up in a cult in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You know.
Luckily, she could have, but she didn't, thankfully.
Yeah. So your dad is working in the film industry. What was he doing in the production company?
He was editing movie trailers. And yeah, like some like for some big movies, like Blade Runner, there's some Stanley Kubrick movies. He was editing actual film.
Right.
Yeah.
Like cutting it, putting it together with a little thingamajig.
Exactly.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. For the listeners, I made a, what would you even call this movement? Like you're pulling a lever, but it's like a, do you know that
like
thing that puts the film together? I've only seen it in movies because by the time.
Like a punch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
By the time I had to edit anything, it was on Final Cut Pro, so I never even learned how to, get 16 millimeter snippet and whatever. I've only seen it in old movies. But okay, so they're working at, you're born 6 years later. What makes them move away?
Oh, God. Well, there was my dad. If my dad listens, he made some questionable investment decisions through the counsel of like a financial manager or something like that, like a business manager who was a total, after hearing all these stories, I'm just like, this person was a total fraud and completely took advantage of my dad. It's just so sad. But basically I think that this guy was like, oh, invest in this company that my friend is, blah, 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 XYZ. My dad put it all, there was the crash, the financial crash in the 90s. So that would have been,
the late 90s? The pet.
No, it would have been, no, before that. It was, hold on, I'm doing the math. 92.
Okay.
92, 93. Anyway, there was a huge financial crash. He went bankrupt, so he had to file for bankruptcy. My mom had breast cancer, and she survived, but she had to do chemo. She had a mastectomy. He filed for bankruptcy. We had this land near Yosemite. And then we had the house that we lived in LA, and in Yosemite there was like a mobile home on the land that was temporary before they built a house up there. And I think that the bank had to seize one property, and my mom, after having cancer, didn't want to live in the city. She wanted to be in nature.
Yeah.
And so they sold the house in LA. My dad moved into an apartment in LA, and he stayed in LA because he had to work. And my mom and I moved up to this mobile home trailer. We had 40 acres of land. And so that's what made that move happen.
Okay. And you're what, 6 at this time?
6, yeah.
Are you just going with the flow? Because this seems like, all of this together is fairly. Any one of these things seems traumatic. A move, a parent who has a illness, financial problems. Any one of those things. All three together seems cataclysmic.
Yes. In my therapy, this has been processed a lot. I mean, looking back, I'm like, okay, I see where all of this comes from, and it's from this. Caretaker complex, it's all there. So luckily this land that we moved to was my favorite place. We would go there with friends a lot, throughout the year, and like 4th of July or we didn't celebrate 4th of July, but it would just be like any vacation time we would like go up there. And so I was very excited. And I think probably the way that they spun it was like, this is where we're going. Dad's going to have like an awesome new apartment that you're going to have your own room in. And the apartment wasn't, I mean, I don't, I have little memories of it. I don't remember it a ton, but it was like it was sad. It was like very sad. The whole situation was very sad. And it was a couple years that we lived apart from my dad. And it was, as far as I understand, it was just because he had to work in LA. And it was like at least a 6-hour, he wouldn't have been able to commute.
Right.
And so, and then I had an amazing time as a kid. And it wasn't until recently, I used to have these sleepovers. My mom would drop me at a friend's house for like a weekend. And I had no idea that the reason why I had those sleepovers was because she was going down to LA for chemo. I had no idea. And so she would go away and then come home. So I think that, I mean, kids are so sensitive and absorb everything. So I'm sure that I knew, to an extent, at least I could feel what was going on. But I mean, that was kind of a mind-blowing thing when I realized that that's why I was having these sleepovers.
Well, okay, you say that, but a lot of the same things you're talking about happened to my family to various degrees.
Yeah.
And they hid a lot of it from me. Not in not out of shame or anything like that. I just think they were like, my parents were trying to protect us.
Of course.
And so only I was talking to I don't know, I'm trying to think about how much my dad would want me to say, but like he had cancer at some point, but because my aunt was had cancer at the same time, he's like, I don't want to overload everyone. This is like in the early 2000s. And so he just kind of like got it, quote unquote, taken care of. Like he just dealt with it.
Wow.
And like my mom knew, obviously, but like didn't tell us.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what? And that's a pattern in my family of them. And it comes from a good place, out of love, out of the desire to protect. But then it turns into these like secrets that you only like find out about later on. And you're like, wait, what? That's what was going on at the time. And I think it contributes to a weird, I don't know how to even characterize this, but like, something's going on when you're younger. Like, you're right. You absorb this stuff, but you don't know exactly what it is. And so this almost just like confusion, I guess, is what I'm, I don't know if that was your experience.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that they just protected me.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it affected me for sure, but it's so interesting how, like, now that I have my daughter, all of these things kind of are falling into place. Becoming a parent and then seeing like things that my parents did, I'm having a lot of moments of being like, oh, like, okay, these things are making sense now, or these things aren't making sense now. Yeah, I think it's like also kid by kid. Like if you
right,
when you're a parent, you know your kid so well. And I mean, I guess the hope is that as a parent, you would know my kid does so much better if I talk things through with them and explain in detail what's going to be happening and prepare them, or, protect them and let them live in their, their little bubble. Like,
I mean, I think for myself, there was something good to it in that it preserved the bubble. And in that bubble, I was allowed to become the creative person that I became. So I don't condemn them for any of this stuff. I'm just saying that there is, like, the flip side to that living in confusion there was something positive to it.
Mm-hmm.
But did they totally, like, even the financial stuff, did you just know you were moving, or did they sit you down and kind of talk you through that stuff?
No, I had no idea. No. I mean, no. I mean, it was like a trailer, but that's where we would stay when we were up there, and it felt like home. Like, it didn't even cross my mind that there was, like, we had to do that because we had lost all of our money. Mm. Yeah, I think that the first time that entered my consciousness was when I was in junior high, and my mom, she would apologize. I think living in Ventura, it's close to Santa Barbara, Ojai, Montecito, there's a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
And she would apologize that she wasn't able to provide the same luxuries that friends had. And I would always just be like, what are you talking about? Like, that wasn't even like a awareness of mine that that there was like economic differences between me and my peers. But she would like bring that up a lot. Like, clearly that was an insecurity of hers. So that was sort of the beginning of that, and kind of like putting the pieces together.
Did you have any privacy in this trailer, or were you and your mom kind of in the same place?
No, I had a bedroom, and she had a bedroom, and there's a bathroom and a little living room and a kitchen. It was cute.
Yeah. So I was imagining like an English camper van, kind of like
no. No, it's like a mobile home, mm-hmm. like in a trailer park.
Because I was wondering, because you said as someone who likes her privacy, I was wondering if that goes back to your childhood, or if that was something that developed later in your life.
No, I think that's just. I think it's just being an only child and having grown-ups. I spent a lot of time on my own. I think I would come home from school. My mom would just like release me into the wild, which I was like, how did you, I mean, now that I have my daughter, I'm like, how did you feel comfortable just like releasing me? There were mountain lion, rattlesnakes, bear, wild boar. Like, it's like for real wilderness.
Wait,
and she was like, oh,
was it forest? Was it plains? What was this area like?
It was the foothills of the Sierras. So it's like pine trees, oak trees, mountains, hills, forest. Yeah. But she was like, you had your 2 dogs. You were saying you had your 2 dogs. So I had these 2 border collies, and then I had a whistle. I had a 2-mile whistle that I brought with me, and I just went playing I was climbing trees and like making little forts, and my dogs were with me, and it was amazing. I loved it.
And you encountered the wildlife, or you just knew that it was there somewhere?
I mean, yes, I've the boar and the snakes, and yeah, they're all there. I never crossed paths with a bear, and I never crossed paths with I saw a mountain lion at a distance, but I never like came to face to face. It was definitely a present. I remember I was very cautious.
Uh-huh.
And I never went anywhere without my dogs, who were border collies, which are like, they're herding. They're very protective.
But you were not sorry. I'm the part that I'm like getting stuck on was like you were not afraid. Like you saw a boar. Like there was a raccoon in our tree, and I walk out to let Mabel go to the bathroom, and it was like 10 feet away from me. I'm like, nope, and I go back inside. This is a raccoon. Like we're talking about like a boar with like tusks. And you were you were not afraid of it?
No, for sure I was afraid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like also, I mean, I was really good at climbing trees, and I always had a plan. Like I knew the land really well. I always had a plan. Like if there's a boar, I'm gonna go up this tree, or like go on top of this rock, or yeah. I think in the back of my mind, and then I would always like carry a rock in my hand, and yeah, it was there. Yes, but it didn't prevent me from being out there.
Okay, so you were free.
Yeah.
You had all this freedom,
Yes.
but at the same time, you were prepared in case of danger.
Yeah, and I had this whistle.
Right.
It's
a 2-mile whistle. What is that exactly?
It's like this whistle. You can hear it for 2 miles. It's very loud. So like when you blow it, you have to cover your ears.
Okay. Sorry. As a suburban kid, I never like the amount of wildlife that's in my backyard, which is possums, squirrels. I think I said this before we started recording. Raccoons, obviously, as I just said. There's some bird of prey because I've cleaned up smaller bird entrails before. So I'm going to guess a hawk or something like that. And then there's some other... Oh, skunks. That's too much for me. Oh, yeah, and then we coyotes, obviously, are just like walking up the streets.
I know.
This seems crazy to me. And I've said this millions of times, but like... In New York, I didn't worry about anything besides bed bugs. That was the one thing I worried about. I didn't walk into the 4th Street subway and think I was going to see wolves or something.
Yeah. Well, now the rats have gotten extremely out of control. So that is a thing. And now New York has mosquitoes, which like is...
So does LA.
So does LA. Right. Okay, sorry. I guess, I should have... Right, that's the thing that was new. They moved to LA because I didn't grow up with mosquitoes.
No, we moved here at the worst time. Like, rents went up, mosquitoes moved in, it was no longer a dry heat.
The rats are very... Ugh. They're so smart, though, but they're so destructive.
But this is the thing. Wildlife, to me, again, growing up in the suburbs, was always at a remove, something you saw in a film. Whereas for you, the way you described it sounded like you grew up in like a children's novel.
It was amazing. I feel so lucky that I had that as part of my childhood. I mean, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then what prompts the move, you said, to Ojai?
Yeah, well, we moved to Carpinteria first. I think that the distance for my dad really, we wanted to be, I think my parents wanted to be a family again.
Sure.
The distance for my dad was hard. He was coming up like every other weekend, so he would be there for one weekend. I think that it was taking a toll on my relationship with my dad. I mean, it was a couple of years of this. And sometimes I think that time affected my relationship with my dad, like, I mean, for a really long time. It was anyway.
Do you mind if I ask how?
Well, just not as close. I don't know, maybe that's normal. I think there's a lot of conflict with my dad in my life. I think just feeling like a really intense closeness with my mom and not so much with my dad. But so I think that they wanted to be closer together. My mom did not want to move back to LA. She didn't want to live in a city anymore. She grew up in a rural area also. So she wanted to be not in LA, but close enough. They had to be close enough so that my dad could commute. And so they picked Carpinteria, and we moved. And I was so sad. Okay. I did not. That is when I was devastated to leave.
How old were you then?
Well, I was going into 3rd grade.
Okay, so like 9, somewhere in there.
Yeah. I was devastated, and I remember my parents said, "You're gonna love the house. It has like a Japanese, like." they described the architecture as like Japanese, but it was like a tract home.
Okay.
And I got there and I was like,
about it?
I don't know. It didn't make any sense.
Okay.
But that was like to excite me. But yeah, so we lived in Carpinteria.
Okay. So, I mean, this seems like a lot for someone to deal with before they're even 10 years old. All of this.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was so, living up in the Sierras was so amazing. Moving was hard, but kids are so resilient. I mean, it's really incredible. I think I made friends right away, and then it was a new life.
And then how long are you in Carpinteria for?
Until I was 15.
Okay. So then you moved. I mean, you're moving then in high school.
Yeah. So then I moved in the middle of high school to Ventura. That was also devastating because I was changing schools. I was like, I mean, that's, it's 30 minutes without traffic, but it's longer. It was long. My best friend lived in Goleta, which is on the north. That's like north side of Santa Barbara. It's like where UCSB is, kind of Isla Vista. Yeah, so she lived in Goleta. That was like an hour drive. And we moved to a tiny little house in Ventura. It was so sweet. And I went to school in Ojai.
Okay. Now, the thing that I am curious about, actually, before I get there, was your mom a practicing therapist?
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, she was. Mm-hmm. She had a private practice.
And she was a Jungian, right? If I read that correctly on the internet.
Yeah, she was. She didn't become a Jungian analyst until I was in high school.
So before that was straight up like psychoanalysis type stuff?
No, she was a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Okay. Is she using the therapeutic techniques to talk to you? Like how much therapizing are you getting as a small child?
I don't know. I think that I remember some conflicts where this is going to come out sounding really weird, but I remember some conflicts where I think I was really like pushing out, and I wanted some kind of pushback, and like I was yelling and I wanted to be yelled back at or something like that. But she was always like so understanding of every experience I was having. Understanding if I was mad, understanding if I was sad, understanding if I was upset. It was always understanding. It was always space. And sometimes I just I just wanted to fight, I mean, not like that, not physically. No, I got it. But I never, which again, that's a very lucky that's a gift to give, to just always hold space like that for your child. But I think at the time I wanted her to fight back with me or press. I was pushing the boundaries and I needed the boundary to be set.
Yeah. And instead it was just like, well, here, have some more boundary.
Yeah. Or it was just always, I understand. Uh-huh. And I was a jerk. I mean, sometimes I was like a real jerk,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, so was I when I was a kid.
Yeah.
To my parents, at least.
Yeah, to my parents. For sure.
Because this is the thing, for me, on some instinctual level, I didn't know why, but I just knew that, there was something I didn't like about the suburbs and about... I didn't want their lives. And there's nothing wrong with their lives. I'm not trying to, But I just instinctually knew it wasn't for me, and I didn't know why. And so I pushed against that. Mm-hmm. And so it was especially by the time I was 18. It was very contentious.
Yeah.
So to go back to the thing that I interrupted myself to ask about your mom's therapeutic stuff, although now I want to interrupt myself again, which is once she got into Jungian kind of stuff, did the way that she talked to you change? Was it more about like, collective unconscious and dreams and stuff like that, or was it still kind of like, I understand?
Yeah, she didn't really talk, like, we didn't really talk about that stuff. She was just working so hard. Becoming certified as a Jungian analyst it takes a really long time, and it's very challenging. And I think that she was just very consumed with that world, and I think very just in it, like in herself. The way, when I was growing up, she was working in a lot of community settings. So she was working there was this place called Devereux, which is a center for developmentally disabled kids. So she was working as a therapist there. And then she was working for I don't know if it was an organization, but it was the like migrant farm workers in Oxnard. She was working as a therapist for the families. And there was just a lot of, that was, I think, really difficult. The things that she was seeing was really difficult. And I think that that was more when I was in high school, and she projected, I think that brought a lot of fear, and she projected a lot of that onto me. I don't think she did consciously. I think if I've ever talked to her about that now, she just wouldn't quite connect. But I was such a good kid. I started hanging out with, I got into hardcore music, and the people that I was hanging out with looked physically, their appearance looked like they were getting into trouble, but everyone, I mean, it was like straight edge.
Right.
No one was doing drugs, no one was drinking, everyone was vegan, like people just like looked intense. And she would pick me up from my friend's house, and she would like look into my eyes, and she would be like, your pupils are dilated. You've been doing drugs, and like accuse me of doing drugs. And it was like, it became very paranoid, because then I would be like, oh, did I do drugs that I didn't even know? I mean, but I was such a, like, I just wasn't. And so I think that what was happening was that she was working in these communities where there was a lot of gang activity, there was a lot of drug abuse, there was a lot of violence and abuse in the home, and like she was like, it was just coming out in our relationship where it shouldn't have, because I wasn't.
Right.
I mean, I think maybe the people I was hanging out with looked scary.
Sure. But you're like,
but they
you held
weren't.
up like your hand.
I know.
I got X's on. I'm not doing anything.
I know.
Was this 90s hardcore? We're talking like Orchid, that kind of stuff?
Oh, this is like, I don't know, maybe 2000s. This was like American Nightmare, Converge, Blood Brothers, Bane. It was like a Boston. Is that like a Boston? Poison the Well.
I remember.
I mean, okay. Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
we're right at the end, and I'm just curious about, through all of this, is there an existential path, or are you just, and again, I know we started here, so I don't know if this is even characterizes you at all, but were you just kind of like following what you felt, as opposed to like having some kind of existential plan in mind?
Oh, totally just following the thread. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, I took some time off, and I was like, I need to move to New Mexico. Like, I don't know why, but I just do. And my parents supported me, and I did. And then I lived there for 6 months or 7.
What did you do in New Mexico? Like make turquoise jewelry?
I lived with this woman who had a little farm, and I took care of her animals, and I I milked goats. It was like very exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed. And then I went back to school. But yes, I think that there was that's kind of how it's been.
Wait, sorry. Talk to me. How did you know about this? Was a friend of yours who owned like a small farm?
Well, I think the way that it happened exactly was that I became really obsessed with goats. Like I kept finding all this goat jewelry, like these goat pins. There's something goat was calling me. And so I just kind of put the word out, like, I think I want to work on a goat farm. I want to learn how to make cheese. I want to like do everything by hand. And then my mom was visiting a friend of hers who lived in New Mexico at the time, who's an artist. And they were having dinner together with a bunch of friends, and she sort of shared this with the group, and Luchita said, "Oh, my friend knows a woman who has goats. You should put them in touch." And then the woman who had the goats got into a horse and buggy accident where her horse like drove off the road, or a pony. It was like a pony. And she broke her collarbone, and so she needed someone to help her with all of the animals. And so I just moved there into her house, and she had goats, and she had a horse she was rehabilitating, and emus, chickens, ducks, turkeys. It was like a little farm. And she taught me how to make cheese. Yeah.
So you really are just like kind of like... Yeah. Again, dumb metaphor, but in a cartoon when there's a pie cooling on the windowsill, and then the scent reaches Bugs Bunny or whoever, and then they just float on the scent.
Yeah,
that was kind of
yeah. I think so. I mean, I was smart. I was making smart decisions, and I was like taking good care of myself, and I had good street smarts. Like I had really good sense of people, and I think like I
You had a 2-mile whistle?
I had a 2-mile whistle. I think that I trusted people, but like knew when something wasn't feeling right, and would know how to get myself out of like a situation that wasn't right. So yeah. Right. And my mom, I mean, of course I think about my daughter, and I'm just like, oh my God, I would never. But my mom was always like, well, I really trusted you, Maia. Like, you had a really good sense of yourself. And I knew that I think that she knew me. She knew me. So, yeah.
Right. I wasn't trying to say you were naive in any way. I was just saying that that if you had an interest, you were like, well, let's just do this.
Yeah,
but there
definitely.
was I guess the thing that I am trying to suss out is there was no plan. Like, there was no, like, I'm going to be, like, I was forced. My parents were like, well, you got to pick something.
Oh, yeah.
And I originally wanted to be a physicist. And then I went from there and I to philosophy.
Uh-huh.
Again, with a hidden, and I say this a ton on this show, but, like, really the hidden desire that I didn't even know I wanted was to do what I'm doing now, right? But I just couldn't, I didn't know it existed. I didn't know that entertainment was even, option for me.
Right.
So I'm just like, well, science is an option. I'm good at that. I'll be a physicist. I like cosmology. I like quantum physics. All right. And then philosophy. Well, okay. Well, my mom's a teacher. I can be a professor, right? That stuff was very obvious, but I had to have a thing.
Yeah. I was never, well, my parents never said anything like that to me. I think that they were both, I mean, my dad, even, he was an artist, and I think he was an art collector. He loves artists. He loves art and music, and I think my mom is really creative in her own way as well, and they never said to me, like, you need to be this thing, which can go either way, but I am really thankful for that because my dad said something to me recently. My dad's 81. Mm-hmm. He's getting older. He said something to me recently that was like such a it was just so meaningful. He said, even if you don't make anything else in your life or do anything else in your life, I'm so proud of everything that you've already done in your life. And it was, that's just such a profound thing to hear from a parent. I think especially if you want to please your parents, you want them to be proud of you. You want their approval, Yeah. Just hearing something like that from him it's kind of been like that my whole life, which is a huge gift.
Yeah. Okay, then I guess last question. If you are given, I don't want to say like it's boundaryless, but if you are given so much freedom, how do your desires form for what you want, existential desires specifically, for what you want out of life? I don't even necessarily mean occupationally. I just mean, well, I like music. I'm going to do that, as opposed to, a thing that I ask on this show a lot is, how do you cross the line from liking music to being like, well, no, I want to create it myself, or just, singing other people's music, to being like, no, there's something in me that I think needs to be brought out.
Yeah. I actually, I don't remember when this was exactly. The Daruma dolls? Do you know what a Daruma doll is?
No.
It's this, wait, do I have, oh my God. Well, okay, I can run, it's in the other room. I can run and get it and show it to you. But it's this doll, I think, oh my God, am I going to get this right? I think it's Chinese. Daruma doll, is it Chinese? Yes, I got it in Chinatown. It's this doll that has these two eyes, and you make a wish, or you like set an intention and you color in one of the eyes. And then when that wish becomes fulfilled, or that intention unfolds, it becomes fulfilled, you color in the other eye. Maybe this is Japanese. This might be Japanese.
It's okay. You're not.
I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. I'm really
not
sorry.
Holding your feet to the fire on.
Yeah, I know. But you'll see them a lot of times in restaurants with two eyes filled in. So I remember I filled in one eye and I said, I want to be a musician. I think I must have gotten it when I was like 12 or 13. And I remember I filled it in when I made my first record, and I think after I joined Dirty Projectors. And I was like, oh, I think, and maybe it was actually like in that transition, I would always, whenever people would be like, what do you do? I would always say what I did to make money. So like I cooked. I used to be a personal chef, so I would like cook for people. And so I would say, I'm a personal chef, or like I used to work in a tattoo shop. I worked in a tattoo shop, or like whatever my occupation was. And I remember being like, when do I get to say that I'm a musician? Like what gives me permission to say that? And I think, yeah, there was definitely a point when I was like I think it's like a fake it till you make it thing, where I'm like, I think I can just say that I'm a musician.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I am, and then I was. I mean, I've always been for my whole life, but like, I think, yeah, there definitely was like a moment, and I colored in the eye of the Daruma doll. And I think I've always wanted to have my own songs and my own musical project and be my own artist. And it took me a long time. I'm putting out my second record now under my name, I think, and I'm turning 39. I think I've always played in other people's projects. I was always a side person. And I think it took a long time for me to build the confidence to be like, oh, I like, it's okay for me to put myself forward. But it took a while.
So wait, if I'm doing the math right, sorry, I don't mean to keep going, but like, you had an older dad then.
Yeah, he was I think he was like 45. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my dad is like, of all my friends, he was the oldest. And my mom was 30 or 38, 30, or no, maybe he was 42. They're 5 years apart, and she was in her late 30s when she had me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's also like a kind of, there's a definite distance. Like my parents were in their like late 20s when they had me.
Right, which I'm just like, oh my God, mind blowing that someone could have, like, it's so young.
Yeah.
I mean, for like when even having my daughter when I did, I was just like, but I'm still so young. Like,
yeah. But yeah, I think that there's like having that extra distance too, I think maybe gave you some extra space. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh,
I was just thinking about
probably
that when you were talking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm sure.
Maya, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Andy. It's so nice to talk to you.
Good, bad.
Wonderful.
Neutral.
Nice to just, chat.
Was the neuroses too much? Or were you?
No. I'm not getting neuroses.
Were you fortified by your mom? You're like, I can deal with a neurotic Jew.
I mean, my dad is a neurotic Jew, and I have learned to weather the neuroses my whole life. So it's not unfamiliar, but that's not like I'm not like thinking in my head like, oh my God, what a neurotic guy. I'm like, you're asking some beautiful questions. And the philosophy background makes a lot of sense.
Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye.